Thank you so very much.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvrajagacharya Asatara Satyashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dhama Ki Jai, Mathura Dhama Ki Jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dhama Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dhama Ki Jai, Gangamaya Jamuna Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvasesa Sindhivadi Paskachade Satarane, Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Stam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha, Vanchakapachivishcha, Kripasindhavya Bhattapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavya Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's March 3rd, 2025, in Hillsborough, North Carolina, and we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 60, Text 36. Tvatpada padma makaranda jusam muninam Vartmasputam nirpashubir nanudur vibhavyam Yasmadaloki kamive hitamishvarasya Bhumam stave hitamato anuye bhavantam. Please chant. Yasmadaloki kamive hitamishvarasya Bhumam stave hitamato anuye bhavantam Tvatpada padma makaranda jusham muninam Vartmashputam nirpashubir nanudur vibhavyam Yasmad aloki kamive hitamishvarasya Bhumam stave hitamato anuye bhavantam. Tvatpada padma makaranda Nirpasubir nanudur vibhavyam Tvatpada padma makaranda jusham muninam Vartmasputam nirpasubir nanudur vibhavyam Yasmadaloki kamive hitamishvarasya Bhumam stave hitamato anuye bhavantam. Twat, your, pada, of the feet, padma, lotus-like, makaranda, the honey, jusam, who relish, muninam, for sages, vartma, your path, asputam, not apparent, near, in human form, pashubhihi, by animals, nanu, certainly then, durvibhavyam, impossible to comprehend, yasmat, because, alokikam, supramundane, Iva, as if, ihitam, the activities, Ishvarasya, of the Supreme Lord, Bhuman, O all-powerful one, Tava, your, Ihitam, activities, Atau, you, therefore, Anu, following, Ye, who, Bhavantam, you. BBT translation, this is Rukmini answering point by point Krishna's arguments as to why she should leave him and marry someone else. BBT translation, your movements, inscrutable even for sages who relish the honey of your lotus feet, are certainly incomprehensible for human beings who behave like animals. And just as your activities are transcendental, O all-powerful Lord, so too are those of your followers. BBT purport. Here, Queen Rukmini replies to Lord Krishna's statement in text 13, Apasta vartmanam pumsam alokapatam iyusham atista padavim subru prayasidanti yoshita. O fine-browed lady, subru means very nice eyebrows. Women are usually destined to suffer when they stay with men whose behavior is uncertain and who pursue a path not approved by society. Unquote. In the present verse, Rukmini is taking the term alokapatam to mean unworldly path. Those who are entangled in worldly behavior are trying to enjoy this world more or less like animals. Even if such people are, quote, culturally advanced, unquote, they should simply be considered sophisticated or polished animals. Srimati Rukmini Devi points out that because the Lord's activities are always transcendental, they are apasta, or unclear, to ordinary people. And even the sages, trying to know the Lord, cannot perfectly understand these activities. Tvatpada padma makaranda jusam muninam vartmasputam nirpasubir nanudur vibhavyam yasmad alokikamive hitamishvarasya bhumams tave hitamatu anu ye bhivantam. Your movements, inscrutable even for sages who relish the honey of your lotus feet, are certainly incomprehensible for human beings who behave like animals. And just as your activities are transcendental, O powerful Lord, so too are those of your followers. So we have some commentaries by our acharyas. So first we're going to go to Srila Jiva Goswami. Nanu is an exclamation in prema, or it means certainly. Your favorite activities cannot be understood by jnanis who relish the sweetness of your feet by the influence of association with your devotees. Since your activities are covered by other actions to conciliate the public, they cannot be understood at all by unintelligent men. However, those with proper intelligence can understand. This is the answer to Krishna's remark that his path is unclear. You also do not perform the actions of ordinary people. Your activities are beyond the material realm, although they appear ordinary, Eva, because your glories are constant. Bhuman. And let's go to Srila Sanatana Goswami. Jnanis muninam also, by association with devotees, relish the honey or bhakti rasa from your lotus feet. The devotees, of course, relish this, and more so do your close associates. Nanu is an exclamation in prema, or means certainly. Your conduct is independent, asputam, of them, just as persons intoxicated with liquor fail to act according to normal rules, not thinking clearly. Your conduct cannot be understood by persons who are like animals. It can be understood by persons having proper intelligence, since they are not qualified for regular duties. And Srila Sanatana Goswami is going to quote here from Bhagavatam 11:29. Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvidyetiya vata matkata shravanau vashrada yavanna jayate. As long as one does not become detached from daily nitya and periodic naimitika duties, or has not awakened his faith in hearing topics about me, one must perform one prescribed duties of varnashrama. That's the end of that translation of that quote. One may speculate about a person's intentions, though it is said that one should know karma and vikarma in Bhagavad Gita 4:17. Some devotees may even engage in vikarma. This verse answers the statement in verse 13, Aloka patam iyusham, women suffer from men whose behavior is uncertain and who pursue a path not approved by society. Alokikam ihitam means conduct which is beyond the material world. But this is only apparent, Eva, since you generally act properly, so that people can follow such conduct. Or alokikam can mean not in excess of what is commonly said or done. This is because you have unlimited greatness, Bhuman. If you were bound by the rules of the world, you would be limited. You are qualified for activities beyond this world. Or your conduct is independent because your actions are certainly Eva, beyond this world. Eva here means Eva. Even the devotees' actions are beyond this world. Thus the answer has been given to Aloka Patam Iyusham in verse 13. Or Apasta Vartmanam is answered with Alokikam Ihitam. This is certain, Nanu. And going to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Here Rukmini replies to Krishna's statement, so I'm not going to read that again. I've already read that 3 times. Rukmini said, yes, it is true, because your activities are always, now this is important, this is a very good tactic in a debate. If someone says something, you first agree with them. You understand? Because she's refuting each of Krishna's statements one by one. So she doesn't just say it's wrong. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying, Rukmini said, yes, it is true. Because your activities are always transcendental, they are unfathomable, apasta, even to the sages. And certainly, Nanu, they are incomprehensible to the animalistic men entangled in worldly behavior. It is true that you do not follow the customary path, alokapatam. Your endeavors transcend alokikam, this world. Therefore, the endeavors even of those who follow you are also transcendental. So, Krishna is saying, don't follow me, because women who follow men who have an uncertain, irregular path, not approved by society, will definitely suffer. And she's saying, well, okay, your activities are not always in line with the ordinary life, but following you is not suffering because you're transcendental. So I thought it significant that Krishna here gives a valid warning to women. Sometimes we think about the Bhagavatam's warning to men about women. Right, like Mohini goes to the demons and says, you know, if there's some woman wandering around improperly dressed and flirting with all kinds of men, you shouldn't trust her. Right? And we find that men do fall prey to attractive women who ruin their lives, correct? Yes? Oh, there's an attractive woman, and then their life is over. But similarly, women can fall prey to men who are impious, who are criminals, who are deviants. Yes? Yes. It's a problem in general that we can become attracted to people who are actually unsuitable, who are not good for us. So this is a valid instruction. Krishna is saying to women, stay away from men who have uncertain behavior and who follow a path that society does not approve. You know, marry a good man who's on a good path. Of course, you know, in this world, we can't always tell who's a good and bad person superficially. That's, you know. If anyone thinks I'm going to become so astute and so much learning from my mistakes and others' mistakes that I'm always going to be a perfect judge of others' character, I will tell you right now that's not going to happen. I mean, even in Leela that doesn't happen. Mother Yasoda and Mother Rohini think that Putana is a demigoddess. And the cowherd boys get fooled by Vyomasura and Pralambasura and what's the other one? One more. So, you know, sometimes this happens, that even the devotees get fooled by demons who dress up as devotees or who look like devotees, or by devotees who appear to be demons, like when Bibhishan comes to surrender to Ram, and everyone, including Lakshman, everyone except for Hanuman, was like, don't have anything to do with him, he's a demon. So sometimes even in transcendental Leela there's this confusion, but the principle is still there, that if somebody is doing something that's sinful, that's not approved by society, then following such a person is dangerous, and entering into a romantic liaison with such a person is not going to be very auspicious. So here Rukmini she's very cleverly taking each of Krishna's arguments, and she's saying how it's right in a different way. It's not right the way you said it, but it's right in a different way. And this is, as I say, a very, very good debating technique. Now, if you just want to smash somebody and devastate their ego and leave them crying in a corner, that's something else. But if you really want to transform somebody, or you want to have a relationship with someone with whom you disagree, it's far better to start off with points of agreement. So yes, Krishna, you're right. You're making a very valid point. And in some ways this point applies to you, but in another way it doesn't apply to you. So generally Krishna does set a good example. He says this to Arjuna. He says that I'm engaging in work to set a good example. You know, Arjuna gives this argument that if I engage in this war, so many men will die, women will be left unprotected, and will have illegitimate children. And then Krishna says, actually, the real cause of illegitimate children is men setting an example of not doing their duty. If you really want good population, you should set an example of a man who's responsible and does his duty. And he says, I do that. I'm the Supreme Lord, yet Krishna says, I set that example of being responsible. And if I didn't do that, Krishna says, then there would be unwanted population. We give the example all the time that although Krishna had 16,108 wives, he was able to expand and be with each of them individually and actually care for them and actually care for his children. Like Narada Muni came and visited Krishna and saw that Krishna was playing with his children and getting his children properly married, and he was being responsible. So Krishna's showing this behavior. He's showing the behavior of being, I'm a responsible husband, I'm a responsible father. I actually take good care of the people that I make promises to. Right? Krishna always says, he says to Arjuna, declare it boldly that my devotee is never vanquished. So Krishna sets this kind of example when he meets Vasudeva and Devaki in Mathura after killing Kamsa, and he offers obeisances at their feet. I'm so sorry, I was in Vrindavan, I couldn't serve you. Please let me serve you. Let me be a good son. Let me take care of them. And Krishna says, one who doesn't take care of a chaste wife, one who doesn't take care of elderly parents, that these people are condemned. So Krishna does set this kind of example, but not always. Now, in incarnations like Ramachandra always sets the ideal dharmic example. And you could say, well, he's put Sita out in the forest, but that was actually his dharma as a kshatriya. You know, we may not really get this with our modern leaders who get, found out doing all these criminal activities, and they still maintain their position. You know, where their family members are doing criminal activities, and they just simply support these criminal family members. So that in former times, and by the Lord's standard, that's not the standard. Even if the person didn't do anything wrong, if people are going to be thinking they did something wrong, and they're going to lose faith in the government, and they're going to lose faith in the leaders, then to have people have trust in leadership is more important. The real kshatriya will sacrifice even their family for the sake of the good of the country. It has to be like that. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? I mean, if someone kidnaps your wife and child and say, if you don't blow up this city, I'm going to kill your wife, and then the person says, sure, blow up the city and release my wife, they can't be a good leader. They have to put the good of the country above their own family consideration. So Ram was perfectly following dharma. And generally Krishna's incarnations are like that, but Krishna himself isn't always like that. He's showing that he's the ultimate lawgiver and he's above the law. Of course, when Krishna is supposedly breaking material norms, he's generally doing this in Goloka Vrindavan, which is hidden even from most of the residents of the spiritual world, as we find out from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that even the people in Dwarka and in Ayodhya and in Vaikuntha, they're not even aware of the existence of Goloka Vrindavan. And this is discussed very secretly, very privately. Narad and Uddhava talk to Gopakumar in Uddhava's house and say, these residents in Dwarka, they don't know that Krishna has this place in Goloka Vrindavan. I mean, some do, like you have Uddhava who goes from Dwarka to Vrindavan and Rohini who exists in both realms and so forth. But generally, those activities are hidden, where Krishna's there not in his majestic God feature. And he does things that are morally irregular, like his relationship with the gopis, where he's having a romantic relationship with women who are married to somebody else, where he kills a demon in the shape of a calf, where he's stealing. Of course, he's doing that as a young child, so that's young children stealing is not taken very seriously. But still, he's doing these things that are irregular, because those pastimes are actually very, very sweet. But they're not well understood. Rukmini is saying that, the ordinary people who are just engaged in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, they're practically like animals. They don't understand these pastimes. So you see, in most of the religions of the world, there's little or no knowledge of God as a person and his transcendent pastimes. Hardly people even know the names of God. And we do see that people who know about Krishna's intimate pastimes often do misunderstand them. This is a serious problem. I remember once when I was visiting my mother, she put me up in the apartment of a friend of hers in the same building. They were out of town, and the man had two sons. One of his sons had written a book about Krishna's pastimes. And first I saw it and I thought, oh wow, a book about Krishna's pastimes, and it was horrific. It was just so offensive. So we do find this problem that when people know about Krishna's intimate pastimes, they become very critical. Krishna is immoral. Krishna is some ordinary immoral person. Or there's rise of all these, hedonistic, immoral groups that say they're following Krishna's. Right? We talk about the Prakrita Sahajiyas. Oh, we're not going to follow any regulative principles. We're not going to do any austerity. We're all one with Krishna. Let's have our own rasa dance. But Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur dealt with one yogi like this. That was enticing married women and young girls. And this stuff goes on, yes? I mean, even people who don't know about Krishna, we have these pseudo-religious cults where the leader is having, sexual affairs with so many women, and this is not uncommon. So people cannot understand these kind of pastimes of Krishna. And most of the books of our acharyas that explain these things are not meant for the general public. Like a lot of these books, they don't even have anything philosophical in them at all. Some of these books of Krishna's intimate leelas, there's nothing in there about Krishna is God. And so someone who doesn't understand, they may end up becoming just offensive. And also, one may not understand the transcendent activities of devotees. And again, we have the same situation, that devotees generally act according to ordinary rules of morals and ethics. But as was stated in the commentary, sometimes devotees do things that appear to be vikarma. Such a nice explanation Prabhupada gives in this purport to 930 about even if one does abominable activities, where Prabhupada says that generally our spiritual activities and our material duties run in parallel, but sometimes they oppose each other. And I've thought about those of us who joined the Krishna consciousness movement as adults in opposition to our family. By Vedic standards, that's an abominable activity. I mean, when I decided to join the Hare Krishna movement, my father was immediately supportive and remained that way. He was immediately, completely, enthusiastically supportive. He said, I'm so glad you're looking for God. I wish you would have done it in Judaism, but that's not what's important. What's important is you're looking for God. But my mother was completely opposed for 10 years. I mean, for 8 years she was extremely opposed, and then another 2 years sort of mildly opposed. And I disobeyed my mother. My mother's like, don't do this. Don't move in the temple. Don't drop out of college. Because that was joining the temple. That's what it meant in the 70s. Gave away all your possessions and you left your education and your family and you just moved into the ashram. And I was working in opposition to my mother. And by Vedic standards, that's abominable. That's sinful. You all understand this. But that was in opposition. I couldn't both obey my mother and surrender to Krishna. Or we would distribute books where it's illegal. We were distributing books in places where if we got caught, we were arrested. And I know many, many devotees who were arrested for distributing books. I mean, you had devotees in communist countries like the former Soviet Union who were jailed and beaten and put in labor camps because they were breaking the law. Even now, we have devotees, and I've been to many of these places, we have devotees in countries where Krishna consciousness is illegal. And they have illegal gatherings. I've been to countries, I was in one country for Nrsimha Chaturdasi, where they don't allow there's no freedom of assembly. Like in our country, we can assemble peacefully in as big of groups as we like, but in this country, that's not allowed in that country. And so for Nrsimha Chaturdasi to have a festival, it had to be in someone's apartment because we can't have any legal temples. And 3 people would go up, and then you had to wait 10 minutes, and then another 3 people, and another 10 minutes, and another 3 people. And they said, you can't wear sari and tilak out on the street in this country. You could be put in jail. And then, we had to have a super quiet kirtan. And, we go to the house, and then people put on tilak. Before they leave, they have to wipe off their tilak. So that's against the behavior that's accepted by people in that country, in that culture. So sometimes devotees may appear to do things that are against normal rules and regulations. We think about the wives of the brahmanas who just walked out on their husbands. They walked out on the yajna and they walked out on their husbands. Bye. Or even Prabhupada talks about Prahlad Maharaj. He says, who puts a garland on your father's killer? If someone kills you, you don't garland them and pray to them. This is also irregular according to moral codes. Or if we want to talk about, kind of sweet things like Vidura offering Krishna banana peels. If that happened here, like if you, the pujari, the plate comes up with the offering, and instead of bananas, there's banana peels. Right? Or even Govinda crossing over, stepping over. We have the Vedic regulation. You don't step over anything sacred, but he stepped over to the Lord to massage him. Or we have Mahaprabhu, who embraced Ramananda Roy. And the local brahmanas are like, what's this sannyasi doing embracing this Shudra and crying? This is not proper. He's not even supposed to go, touch the shadow of a Shudra, what to speak of embracing him. So the Lord's activities are difficult to understand. But even if we take the Lord's activities that are not apparently violating Dharma, like I think of this every time we sing the Nrsimha prayers. So we're saying, Jagadish, the ruler of the world, is a half man, half lion with a blood-soaked mane and huge nails and fangs. He's the Lord of the world. Or the Lord of the world is a fish. God is a fish, a golden fish. God is a big turtle getting his back scratched by a mountain. I mean, how can anybody understand this? You couldn't go to people on the street. Do you know who God is? He's a big turtle. He's a boar. He's a boar as big as the sky. So people are not going to understand these activities of the Lord. Ordinary people, they just can't understand it. And Even Rukmini says, those who relish the honey of your lotus feet, even they don't understand it. When Lakshmi Devi sees Nrsingadev, she's like, whoa, what's my Lord doing? How is he in this form? Of course we say, Krishna says, Janma karma jame divyam eva myo veti tadvatat tvakta deham punar janma naitimam eti sorjuna. If we understand the Lord's activities in truth, we become liberated from birth and death. But we can never understand them perfectly. Anybody here, you think you could ever understand Krishna perfectly? That's not possible. Nor